that's why I wanted to talk to you guys.
Oh yeah, right on.
Because your wife is pregnant. You
Oh,
need
yeah.
help.
Right.
Right.
But no, all jokes aside, I really, especially during the early quarantine, everybody was so big on master classes, developing new skills, but nobody really was like, I want to be a better husband or wife.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
nobody was talking about, working on themselves. It was more the opposite. Like I saw people talking about higher divorce rates and fighting and not getting along instead
Mhm.
of taking the time to kind of work on each other. If that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Oh
And
yeah.
Mhm.
I know you guys have the app, and I just wanted to talk about it, let my people know, let everybody know
Yeah.
that you can come out of this with a roadmap to how to be better. So
Right.
That's a good way to put it. Like, come out of this with a roadmap. And I remember early when like quarantine stuff started getting real, and we're like, oh, this is for real. This is no joke kind of thing.
Right.
but
One of my first thoughts was, I want to be able to look back 6 weeks, 3 months from
right,
now and go, all right, Seth, how are you acting in early March,
Right.
in April?
right,
Were you acting a fool? Are you going to be able to look back? Well, no, you are going to be able to look
Right.
back because I decided that. Okay, you're going to look back and go, you did this, you were straight here, you were good. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So it's like almost not having any regrets. Like, I wish I'd have done
Mhm.
that, or why couldn't I have thought of that kind of thing. It's being intentional about that kind of
right.
thing.
Yeah.
Like
To be proud of how you
having
behaved.
control over it, rather it having control over you. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah.
Well, cool. If you want to get started, I guess I have my own intro that I'll add in later.
Yeah.
But if you
Mhm.
guys want to just introduce yourselves, and we can just go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't
Well,
know if you're recording that piece that I just said,
Right,
but
yeah.
you
Yeah,
can
I
leave that
was.
in there.
yeah,
Okay,
use
good.
whatever. Do
Yeah.
whatever works for you.
Yeah.
Well, my name is Melanie Studley. This is my husband, Seth Studley. He's a
Mhm.
licensed marriage and family therapist, and we created the Anatomy of Marriage podcast. I guess it was probably 4 or 5 years ago,
Mhm.
because we had got through this insane time in our marriage where we were fighting. We wanted a divorce. I gave Seth a black eye. Like, it was really, really, really bad.
Mhm.
And when we were in those hard times, we could not find any resources that we felt resonated with us. Everything was like really picture perfect. Like all the marriage resources were love your husband, respect it, blah, blah,
Fairy
blah. And I'm like,
tales.
what do you
Right.
do when, like, I literally gave him a black eye and wanted him to leave me? I was treating him so badly as a method to get him to
Mhm.
leave me. Where's the book for that?
Right.
So that's why we made our show. And that's honestly too why we made our app.
Mhm.
But why don't
Right.
you introduce yourself? Sorry.
Well, yeah, like Melanie said, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and have been doing that for about 12 years. And when we were going through all this stuff, it was like, yo, you're a therapist. You shouldn't be having to
Right.
deal with this
Right.
stuff. But we all do. We all got our stuff that we got to deal with. And one of the number one lessons we learned from coming out of all that crap is she's not going to make me happy.
Right.
Ultimately, like me as a man, as a person, she's not going to make me happy. I have that in myself,
Mhm.
So
Right.
if I'm looking to her to like, oh, you got to do this and do this and do that, and then I'll be happy, then there's a problem there,
Mhm.
Exactly.
And she was thinking the same thing, like, oh, he'll do this, and
Right.
a good man does this, and a husband does this, and I wasn't doing those things. It was, and she wasn't happy. But that's not where it comes from. Like, happiness has to come from yourself. You got to
Mhm.
be happy
Right.
with how you look, how you think. And if you're not, then you got to take that, you got to empower yourself to go out there and exercise or get the
Mhm.
skills to,
Right.
pay the bills or,
Right.
or whatever,
Right.
to be happy. And then when you get married with the person, it's like, then they can supplement that. Like, okay, you're on the
Right.
happiness journey together, if that
It's
makes
like
sense.
icing on the cake.
Right.
And
Right.
Right.
we get it flipped around. We think of it backwards.
Yeah.
And that's a huge detriment to marriages.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So my first, I guess, question, therapy. Like, do you feel that every married couple should, do therapy, or should you wait until you see certain things to go to therapy, or
Mm-hmm.
like, what is your whole perspective on that?
I think, and obviously I'm a therapist, so I'm a little bit biased, but I also have a different view into, participating in therapy myself and then doing therapy with thousands of hours of people and all this stuff. And it usually comes down to awareness. Like, we all have our blind spots from how we grew up or how culture says this or says that. We all have our things that we're not aware about. And what therapy can do is to shed some light on that stuff. Because when you get married, she's going to come at me sideways with all my blind spots. And I'm like, what? I didn't know I did that. And I'm going to do the same thing to her. But if you go to a good marriage therapist or a counselor or a pastor or whatever your jam is,
right,
they're going to ask these questions, especially for like premarital counseling and stuff like that.
right.
That good therapist or good book or whatever is going to say, hey, have you ever thought about this? And sometimes you're like, no, I've never thought about that. And then sometimes the things that we don't think about come up in uglier ways down the road in our marriage. So it's like my advice would be, get that head start on your marriage. Go get somebody to ask you some tough questions so you don't have to go through them and get blindsided later on.
Yeah. Well, you said something that I want to touch on is you said it sheds light on things, right? And the image that kept coming into my head as you were talking was and I've never thought this before, but when we get married and we haven't had therapy or even just sort of self-education around things like therapeutic ideas or self-help stuff, it's almost like, so we recently moved into this house. It's literally like when you get married, your wife and yourself, you're moving into a house together, but you never turn the lights on. You don't know where the bed's going to go. You don't know where the boxes are going to go. You don't know where the forks and the spoons are going. You're just kind of blindly hoping that you put them in the right spot because you are too afraid to turn the lights on and look at stuff for what it's worth or what it means or why it's there. And what a therapist can do, or just therapy education. So like our app is literally therapy education. It's not like you have a problem, go fix it. It's just learn about why we do what we do. And when we do that, we turn the lights on and we say, oh, there's a giant chair there. That's what I kept running into every time. And that chair might be, I was abused as a kid, or my mom had anxiety and I didn't realize it. So I think people are really afraid of getting therapy. I think it sounds too scary. It sounds expensive. It sounds whatever. But you can educate yourself. And I think everybody should do that. Whether they go to therapy or not before they get married, that's up to them.
Should educate, right.
Right.
Yeah.
So for you guys, you said it was 4 years into your marriage when you guys finally did therapy, or?
Well, we had
we did some premarital stuff, but it was kind of
counseling.
Our premarital counseling was terrible.
Yeah, we did the of course we go to church a lot, so of course you go through the singles class first, and then premarital. But as far as counseling, we're in year 3, and I don't think we have officially done therapy yet. So it's kind of I'm looking at it like maybe it's time to, even though we don't have severe problems, maybe we need to go before we do.
Yes.
So we're equipped before we get there. Like you said, you don't want to be walking into stuff that you could have shed light on a long time ago.
Right.
So,
right. And then when you said that, another analogy came to my mind is that when you learn to drive, did they give you your license before road testing or after? You have to go and learn all the rules, learn what to look out for. Like when you're taking that left turn on the whatever, like here's the 10 things that could go wrong. And it's not like you go, no, don't tell me those 10 things. I'd rather find out the hard way. Like we're putting the cart before the horse kind of a thing. And I think what you said earlier, like when COVID started happening, people did masterclasses and learn how to cook and learn how to write a book. And marriage stuff is so boring. Nobody cares about it. But everyone is impacted by it.
Right.
So I'm glad that you brought it up, because that's been my biggest problem with marriage resources for years is I'm going to say this, they back then, so many of them were so boring. I don't care at all. You're not funny. You're not catching my attention. You're not telling me anything new. And the stories aren't real. And this is not helpful. So now everyone has this idea that marriage stuff is just dumb. And it's like,
and like you said, they were not honest. Like everything was cookie cutter, and people were afraid of the ugly truth behind marriage because I think we painted this fairy tale. Like me and my wife always talked about, everybody told us to get married. They made it seem happy, but nobody told us that the year 1 would be a war.
Right.
People moving into a house together and having to figure out how to survive. It's like dropping us, like you said, in a dark room and just figuring it out. So nobody told us that, though. They just like, get married. It's fun. It's loving, which it is. But nobody gave us the honest truth behind marriage.
Yeah, and even this idea of like family of origin is something we talk about a lot. So it's like the
Right.
home that you grew up in, right? So
Right.
usually, well, not usually, you learn right and wrong from the home you grew up in, whether that's an adoptive home, whether that's you lived with your grandma or your parents, whatever that was. So
Right.
you learned, how does the toilet paper go? What time is dinner? Who goes? Do you eat dinner at the table, or do you eat at the TV with TV trays? Like, what do you do?
Right.
So when you get married, you have these two completely different worldviews coming together, and neither one of you are taught
Mm-hmm.
that, oh, you can figure out your own. You can literally figure it out together. Because I remember when we got married, I was going to decide where everything went. Because in my home,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I
That's
knew.
what your mom did.
My mom did everything. My
Mm-hmm.
dad had no say in anything. What kind of toilet paper they bought, laundry. I mean, he didn't care. And so when we got married, Seth was like, why are you so bossy and mean? Because in his home, it's the complete opposite. His
Mhm.
dad does all of that stuff. So we
Right.
aren't taught, like, there's a set of skills, just like driving instructions. There's a set of skills that help you navigate that stuff. You don't have to fight. The first year of
Exactly.
marriage does not have to be terrible,
Mhm.
but
Right.
no one's talking about it in that way.
Right. Nobody talks about it like that, and like you said, it's because I feel like it's really a lack of education
Hmm.
when it comes to that. Like you said, everything was boring.
Hmm.
They make it seem so antiquated, and like nobody
Mhm.
wants to participate in like these big Bible-looking books and
Mhm.
no pictures, no, it's just all the marriage books are so boring looking. You
Right.
ever walk into Barnes and Nobles? It's like bland. Well,
Right.
it used to be there. Now we're getting to a point where people, like you guys and other
Mhm.
people are writing books that catch your eye. They have
Mhm.
roadmaps for you to follow, interactive.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
before, it was not like that. So
Yeah.
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 Before, I mean, it was just like old people,
right,
for real, like, people 55 and above who have been married for a minute, but they don't know, they don't have tattoos, they're mostly white, you
Mhm.
don't see any brown people, you don't see any
Right.
black people, you don't see Hispanic people. It's like, we want to do these resources for like people that we hang out with, like
Mhm.
people that have tattoos,
Right.
like Melanie said, like for wives that gave their husbands a black eye, and
Mhm.
we're not making light of that.
No.
I
Right.
mean, domestic violence is real, obviously, but that was people don't talk about
Right.
that stuff,
Right.
Right.
So like you guys and other who is it that we were just on their show, the Martins, ask the Martins,
Uh-huh.
Kenyon
Right.
and Takara, and like Kev on stage and the Love Hour and Miss Kev on stage, like I love it because it's like opening up, like,
Uh-huh.
hey, let's talk about real stuff.
That's how it really
for once
is.
in our
Yeah.
life. You know what I'm
And
saying?
what's crazy is when we started our podcast, we had people reaching out to us who had been in marriage ministries for literally over 20 years, reaching out to us and saying, hey, behind the scenes, and this is a real story, which is so crazy to me. It was a married couple who does huge church events, called me. I'm not even a therapist, and
Mhm.
said, my wife is domestically violent to me and my children. And it's been happening
Wow.
for years.
Mhm.
I've never had anyone I can talk to about it. What do I do? And I'm like, are you kidding me? You're standing on a stage
Mhm.
Right.
telling thousands of people how to have a good marriage while your wife like yells at you, breaks your things, yells at your children, scratches you, and you have the nerve to stand on that stage and not be authentic and
Mhm.
real and
Right.
vulnerable. That to me is it's
Well,
really
maybe,
damaging.
Maybe it's not the nerve. It talks about like how hard the stuff is to
Right.
talk about.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because people, we got pride, we got egos, we don't want to lose face,
Right.
But like,
Yeah.
I've found that being vulnerable, it goes, oh, you're going through that too? Like, yo,
Right.
that happened to you? Me
Mhm.
too.
Right.
Let's talk about it. And then we can build
Yeah.
actual relationship and like empower
Right.
each other up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's why we made the podcast. That's
Yeah.
why we made the app. It's like we've got to make better stuff, really tangible, helpful, better stuff that's real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to that call you got. How did that make, like, what is your response when somebody comes to you with, especially you as a therapist as well, like how do you handle that type of call? Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey,
Mhm.
my wife is being abusive, or I'm thinking about getting a divorce, like
Mhm.
I'm thinking about leaving. Like, how do you answer that initially to help somebody,
Mhm.
because we have people reach out to us and we're not
Mhm.
even therapists, and we're like,
Mhm.
whoa, like,
Right.
so how do you guys handle
Well,
that?
first of all, you should get connected with Faithful Counseling. So we have what's it called, like an affiliate link with Faithful
Okay.
Counseling. And so that way you can direct people to counselors, which is amazing. They're a
Right.
teletherapy, so it's online and it's really great.
Cool. Perfect.
So we do that because we're like, we can't be everyone's therapist.
Mhm.
So that's a great first step. But
Right.
from
So me, I go into therapy mode, basically, like, okay, are you safe? Are you okay? Let's talk about this. What kinds of things have led up to that, over the years, and go through that. And I think you approach it differently because, like I said, I'm a therapist, so I have to have all these, professional kind of standard kind of things.
there are like rules and laws that apply to him. Yeah.
Right. So she is not under that because I'm licensed and all this stuff. So I look at it differently, but then I'll also bring in some real, like, personal stories, like being vulnerable, stuff like that. And sometimes Melanie's just like, straight up, get out of there. He's a creep, or like, she can't do that to you, kind of thing, which is interesting. So,
well, and I think there's phases of it. So what you have when someone calls you and says, I want a divorce, what do I do? You're looking at the immediate moment, the right now. That's what's happening right now. But then you have to go back and say, okay, well, what has been happening that got us to right now? So sometimes the right now really is like, no, I am being abused and you do have to leave. Like you have to make physical space between you and the person, get counseling, all that. Sometimes the right now, though, is just almost like pressure that is built up and it's not nearly as urgent as people think. And what sometimes people need to do is just vent. Literally, the word vent means to like release pressure. Go talk to somebody, call a therapist. I would like, if you guys can get connected with Get Faithful, or Faithful Counseling, it's a great resource. Like literally vent with someone who cares about your marriage. You'll feel better. Right. So it's hard because there's the sort of immediate, but then also the stuff that led up to it.
Exactly.
If that makes sense.
Right. Cool.
Yeah. So one thing I was going to ask, like, so I know that you guys have a show. Can you just, because if we can, we could air this on our show too.
Definitely.
Tell us all about what you do.
Yeah, so literally we just wanted to start off as making YouTube videos about being in a relationship, being Christians, being young, and then it kind of just turned into long form discussion that didn't really fit for YouTube. So then we were like, hey, how can we continue to make videos and talk? And then the next step was obviously a podcast. So that's how we got into the podcast world. My wife, she still sings. I play. We serve our church, but we wanted to be an example that you can be married, you can be young, you can have fun. Because there's so many people our age, especially in the African American community, that believe that marriage is a scam. It's not, it's not good for your career. It's not good for your life. You got people that want to be married to multiple people. You got people that believe marriage is, outdated. So we wanted to be that example, be an example that you can live, you can have fun, and you can do it being married.
Right. We should work together and create like a whole thing, because that is the way that I look at it. Is like we said earlier, marriage stuff has been historically so stupid. It's been so stupid that nobody wants to look at it, read it, watch it. No one cares. Right. So then you've got to be like either uber pretty and like, oh, look at my marriage blog and my really wavy curly hair. Isn't it amazing? And like, you're not teaching anyone anything.
Not teaching,
And that's kind of what we want to do. This model of like, no, get out there and have the absolutely most amazing life you can because your marriage is rock solid. Right? Yeah. Like, and then that radiates out into your kids. The older your kids get, the more you realize, oh my gosh, my marriage is so important to the health and wellness of my children. And so, yeah, I mean, we're all about it. So I'm so glad that you're out there doing stuff too.
And the most successful people tend to have very strong foundations in marriages. Like that's what we are starting to find as we, we've been house shopping lately. And these people who have money, they have great foundations. They're not just out here, messing with a lot of people, or they have stability, they have foundation, structure, discipline, and they have educated themselves on how to operate in a marriage. So for us, it just kind of solidifies that we're on the right track. And we want to keep promoting that, even if nobody wants to. Everybody likes drama. Everybody likes to share people getting divorced and fighting, but we will be marriage champions. We will promote marriage. So
And that's partially why we made our app really fun. We did not want it to be like stupid, over serious, boring. We wanted it to be really funny. And that's part of like, there's fun stuff to do. There's fun ways to connect, but it's not cookie cutter, boring stuff, because people need to understand that there's a better way to do this. And that was one of our main goals, you know, fast, fun, and easy to use and never boring, you know?
So let's talk about the app. So here's the app. I don't know if everybody has it, but
Yeah.
so of course it's like kind of set up. It reminds me of, I want to say elementary school, because it's that roadmap feel, like achievement, like something we do with kids. We see they respond to hitting new levels, whether it's video games. Like my son literally will play a game to get to the next level.
Right.
So that feeling of achievement and completing something just makes it more fun and interactive. So is that kind of how you design the app?
Yeah. So one of my goals so I'll tell you, all the way back when we very first started the podcast, I kept saying there's got to be a better way to get these tools and ideas and therapeutic resources into the hands of people who actually need them. Because in the past it was read a stupid book and carry it around with you. Who's going to carry around a marriage book? Nobody. Right. And then, or print it off and fill it out. No one is going to do that, right? Who has a printer? No one. And so I was like, there's got to be an app way to do this. And then more importantly, there has to be a way to gamify that, to make it fun and to make it like everything is in life is that sort of it builds up on itself. So when you're learning how to drive, you learn how to do this thing, then that thing, then that thing. So we're used to stuff going linearly like that. So that's part of the reason we made a roadmap. You can't just do whatever you want on the app. You have to go through in stages. Also, because if you don't understand family of origin, you're not going to understand how it impacts your family. So we don't want people skipping parts, if that makes sense. So that was partially how we designed it in that way. But I absolutely am obsessed with our app. It's like my fourth child. It is something I adore. And the whole point is to get people engaged in learning about how they work, and how when they work well, their marriage can work well, and how when they work poorly, their marriage will not work well. And I can't remember what you even asked me. I got totally off track.
Well, it makes me think how you said your kid was playing video games, which ours is too. They go for that, that level up, right?
Right, that level up,
yeah.
And as a man, I want to personally level up, in whatever it is, like financial and body and fitness or whatever. And then as a couple, I want to level up. Like, oh, that thing that we used to fight about a year ago, that's nothing anymore, because we got over that, you know what I'm saying? And now we can enjoy being like emotionally really close to each other and super fun and like loving and intimate and all this stuff connected. So I want to always be leveling up like that. And I believe the app does help you do that with the clearing structure, which is like one of my favorite things. And the clearing structure is a therapeutic tool to helps you kind of break down an argument or disagreement that you've been having with a partner. And it gets down to your feels. It's not like, hey, what you said was stupid. It's like, when you said that, it made me feel this way. And what that reminded me of was this, and this is what I want for myself in the future. This is what I want for us in the future. So it really, it breaks it down like a pretty complex issue or complex idea. It breaks it down and down and down to be like, oh, okay. Now I get you. Now I hear you. Now I see you in that way, which is super helpful.
Yeah, and the clearing structure in particular is so cool because it is designed to make you not fight. So it slows your brain down. You have to answer questions inside the app. Sometimes it will give you options like, when you called me an idiot, I felt, and it will have like a Rolodex of options. I felt, because sometimes you think you're mad when really you're hurt, or you feel betrayed, or you feel lonely. So it gives you these options to look at, and you fill out the questions as you go inside the app. And then the best part about it is it generates a paragraph for you to actually say to your partner. So it says there, "Dear Seth, when you called me an idiot, I felt this. And it reminded me of when my brothers used to make fun of me, and I didn't like." And so it's really weird. It kind of brings in this more all-encompassing
like
humanness,
below the questions.
And then it says, how can we talk about it? What I really wanted was, instead of you calling me an idiot, was to let me help you, or whatever it was, right? And it gives you all the tools you need in one little easy to use package, and it is seriously marriage changing. You can use it actually with your children. You can use it at your job. It's an amazing tool.
Mhm,
But if
mhm.
you were to just explain it, it's a therapeutic tool.
Right.
Fill it out on
People,
this piece.
yeah.
No one would
Right.
do it, right? No one would do it.
So who is it targeted for? Is it for couples dating? Is it for people about to get married? Is it for single people trying to, work on some stuff before they get in a relationship? So what's the target?
All the above.
Yeah,
You know,
everyone.
everybody can use it, just like the clearing structure. Anybody and everybody can use the clearing structure, not only for.
But he means the app, I think.
I know, but I'm
Yeah.
just using an example. Like even for negative things, you can use it as positive things. Hey, Melanie, when you did that, it made me feel like a man. It made me feel awesome. It made me feel like I felt when, I won that award for, basketball.
Oops.
10 years ago or something like that,
Right.
But the app is obviously targeted towards couples that are, seriously dating, engaged, and have been together for a minute. But we have singles that use it too.
Oh yeah, we have people
because-
who aren't even in relationships who just want to have. They
Yeah.
want to be prepared, like the driving lesson analogy. They
Right.
want to know
Mhm.
what are the pitfalls, what to look out for, and how to be the best potential spouse for somebody, which is
Cool.
awesome. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I know that the app, it has a free portion, but there's also a
Mhm.
premium portion.
hmm
So what do we get with the difference? Like,
The premium portion has more education in it. So
Okay.
I don't even think I said this, but we pulled in different therapists and interviewed them in our app. So we have Dr. Matt Eschler, who is a therapist out in Utah. We have Dr. Corey Allen, who is a sex therapist out in Texas.
Yeah.
And when you pay for the premium version, you get more of that education, basically,
Okay.
is what it is. And I think there are some tools that are in the premium version, but I can't remember. We changed it. We've changed it over the months, so
All right.
I can't quite remember. But it's just more of the educational
Right.
stuff that's out there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. So look, I didn't want to keep you guys all day. So I think I only told you 20 minutes, but whatever.
No,
it's
keep
all good.
on. We're
It's all
enjoying
good.
this, so.
So let's just, I guess, kind of close out. Like, let people know, like, what you guys have coming up, the
Mhm.
podcast, the app,
Mhm.
and then we'll be done.
Okay. Well, we did have a couple of conferences that we were going to be speaking at, but COVID kind of
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
sideline all that stuff. But in July, we are going to be at the Love Hour conference with if your listeners know who Love Hour conference, like Kev on stage, Miss Kev on stage, Melissa Fredericks, Fanika Friend,
Mhm.
all kinds of people.
Amazing
It was
people.
going to be this huge thing down in Atlanta, which we're so bummed that we're not getting to. But there's going to be
Right.
an online version instead, and that's coming up. I think July 10th. Or so, and it's a 3-day thing. There's
Like
going to be
9th,
DJs.
10th, and 11th, I think.
Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just go to lovehourconference.com and find that information out. What else?
We're
just
speaking,
doing the app.
we're working on different things and branding and all that stuff. So we don't have much
Cool.
going on because of the
Mhm.
COVID stuff took our events away.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Right.
But
Yeah.
your listeners can catch us daily. We do a
yeah,
Anatomy of Marriage radio show daily, AOM Radio, which is every day on Instagram Live and on Facebook Live. And
we publish our podcast every day. You can
Yeah.
get that on any podcast, whatever, like wherever
Right.
you listen to your podcast, you can
Mhm.
find it. And then we have our website, which is anatomyofmarriage.com.
Mhm.
And if people want to ask us questions, they can send them to hello@anatomyofmarriage.com, and we answer them on our show every single day.
yeah,
Sounds
Yeah.
great. And what time is the show?
it's
7:30.
7:30 a.m. Pacific time.
Yeah.
We're out of
Yeah.
Seattle.
We're West Coast.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
in Louisiana, so that's
Ooh.
9:30 for us.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah,
Oh,
we were just in South Carolina
Right.
and then down on the coast and stuff. And man, I've been to Louisiana a bunch of times.
There
and-
must be great food there, huh?
Great food.
Of course there is.
What's the food you have to eat?
I'm a seafood guy, so
Mhm.
anything with seafood, but definitely like the crawfish etouffee.
Yep.
That's probably my favorite.
Yeah.
Is a
I've had that
crawfish the
before.
same thing as a crawdad?
Yeah.
Crawdad.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
They
sounds
call
like
them
so stupid when I said
Yeah.
a crawdad.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
What
man.
is etouffee? What is that?
It's like a rice.
Oh.
So it's like a rice and like this. Think of it as like a pasta. I don't know how
Uh-huh.
to explain it.
Mhm.
So
Keep
it's
talking.
really
It
good.
sounds lovely. I love
Yes.
seafood. I love all food. So we just went to South Carolina and we had a
Big
like a low country boil.
yeah.
So we could it
Yeah.
ourselves, right? So
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
all
great.
of that. Yeah.
Right.
We'll have to come out to Louisiana, throw an event,
right?
invite us, and we'll
Hey.
eat.
As soon as this is over, we're trying to do everything. So
Do it.
Yeah,
Well,
That's
yeah.
awesome, man.
thank you so much for having us on, and
No problem.
we love what you're doing, and it's exciting to share what we're doing, and
All right.
again, we need to partner and do
Definitely.
more
Let's
exploring
talk
marriage.
about it. Let's do it.
Yeah,
Sounds
for
good.
real.
Thanks, guys.